A few minutes ago, I played some music from the movie The Greatest Showman. If you haven't seen it, I recommend it. If you go and don't like it, I'll double your money back. This is a wonderful, uplifting show for the whole family, for your friends. Everyone's going to enjoy it. It is about P.T. Barnum. He's a showman. He's an extrovert, but he went around and he talked to these people that felt like misfits, like life wasn't being fair to them, wasn't being good to them, and he changed their lives for the better. Along the way, he used a little bit of humbug, to use his word. And if we contrast today's instructor, this is Christian Sadler, as you well know. He's not an extrovert, particularly. I'm sure he's got his moments, but he is someone that is eager to raise the people around him, to improve their lives. But what he's telling us is not humbug. He is improving our lives, helping us improve the lives of our friends, guests, and the people that we meet. And today, here to share with us some more of his wisdom is Christian Sadler. Good morning, Christian. How are you?
I'm doing great, Ron. How are you?
Fantastic. So glad you're with us this morning.
Well, thank you so much. Hey, I'm actually just pulling up to the live taping here at the corporate studio, so I'm not going to share my screen today. So if you just want to throw it back to that national screen, that would be great. We want to keep that fresh in people's mind, and I'm just going to speak with you guys. So thank you so much, Ron, for everything that you do. Appreciate how you've just taken on this role of service and helping out in any way that you can, and it especially shines in these morning calls. So I'm just grateful for you to have you as a part of the team, and grateful for everything that you do. So, folks, today what I want to talk about is shutting up. And what I mean by that is I want to help you guys understand how to say more with less. It's a powerful skill that, if you can acquire it, can assist you greatly. See, many people think that in order to be a part of a conversation, in order to have a good conversation, they need to have all kinds of things to say. They need to, share everything, every single thought that comes across their mind. And what happens when you do that, you actually don't get the opportunity to hear from the other parties involved. And so oftentimes what we see is people in a situations, especially when we're talking about sales and marketing and those things, if you're just listening so that you can respond, you're actually not going to hear what they say. Or if you hear what they say, you're not actually going to hear what they mean. Because as we know, the verbal part of our communication is only about 10%. And the rest of it is tonality and our physical motions and all of those things. And so really, when it comes down to it, folks, if you're saying too much, you're not hearing enough, right? And so I have a great example of this that I thought was so key, and it was actually doing a follow-up with Caleb Riddle. And Caleb is such a learner. He's somebody who really takes direction well, and he's been doing some amazing things. He's been getting a lot of leads. He's been, taking those leads through the process. And we sat down for a follow-up with a gentleman that he had through the Thursday and through the Friday. And so we met with him this week, and I met him down at the Grand America. We said, let's find a place midway. And Grand America is one of my favorite places, by the way, to do follow-ups. And so if you're ever in a situation where, I have an office in Murray, folks, and I have great places around my house, but I just know that there is a certain aura that comes with the Grand America Hotel. They've done a very good job at creating an abundant atmosphere there. And so just past the lobby, there's actually a little seating area where you can, order food and do those things, and that's what we did. And so we sat down with Ryan, and as we got through the conversation with Ryan, it came time to ask for the order, right? AFTO. We all know that phrase, asking for the order. And so as I asked for the order, there was a couple of moments, because I asked multiple times in multiple different ways, right? I asked it in one way and he said, well, I'm not sure, and this and that. And so I asked it in a different way. And I mean, Caleb can probably attest to this. We probably asked for the order 4 times right there in that one exposure. Now here's the thing, we all know that most of the time we're going to get at least 4 no's anyways. And the fact of the matter is, he never actually said no, and for the most part, your prospects won't either, right? They won't say no. They'll say, well, I'm not sure, and well, I got to do this and those things, right? So that they'll never actually say no, but at the same time, they won't commit, and so that's as good as a no. And so I asked in probably 5 different ways. We asked for the order, and there was a couple of times where when I asked this gentleman, Ryan, he just stopped and he was thinking. And I loved that Caleb was watching me and my reactions, and he noticed that I shut up. I didn't interrupt that flow, that state of wonder within this gentleman, because I knew that if he was not saying anything, it was because he was thinking, and if he was thinking, it was him creating a solution of how he could buy, right? So there was a study done, and I don't remember the exact details, but I remember they were testing how long somebody waits before they interrupt after they've asked a question. And so the most patient people that they found were elementary school teachers. And so elementary school teachers, on average, when they took an average of when they ask a child a question, they wait roughly, or actually under 4 seconds. They wait under 4 seconds before they interrupt and either answer for them or ask another question or any of those things. And they did this study about how that actually affects the ability for these children to learn. And here's the thing, that was the most patient people. So in other words, most average people don't even wait 4 seconds. They wait 1 second or 2 seconds. And it seems like an eternity, right? When you ask a question and somebody doesn't respond immediately, the natural response is to jump into either asking another question or answering it for them or making a suggestion or saying, we can do it this way or we can do it that way. And this is what I've seen time and time again as I'm watching individuals who are going through the process and asking questions to their prospects, and especially in that closing scenario, is they'll say, so do you want to get your combo like I did, or were you thinking something else? Well, we can always, right? They start interrupting right away. But as that person is thinking of the way that they're going to do it, you automatically jump in. And I know some of you are sitting there and you're thinking about a situation where you did just this, right? Where you said, can you make it on Thursday night? And if that doesn't work, right, and you don't even wait 4 seconds because you're already jumping into, and if you don't hear a response right away, you start going into your own mind of thinking what that means about what they're thinking. And here's what I want to ask you to do. Get over it. Learn to listen more. Learn to shut up. You got to be willing to shut up. Because when you allow somebody else to go through their natural thinking process, if they're taking time to do so, folks, that means they're thinking of solutions. That means they're thinking of ways that they can do it. And in fact, what you do is when you interrupt, you let them off the hook. Not only do you let them off the hook, but you interrupt their natural flow of thinking. You interrupt the thought process that they have of how they're going to get started. And what I see that most often is when you interrupt, most of you are actually giving them a lower option. You're giving them a different place. You're giving them a lower starting point, right? You're starting at the combo, and if they don't answer right of the way, then you're downselling them basically. You're giving them the opportunity to not move forward with what's in their best interest, because we all know that Renatus is the best income opportunity on the planet. We all know that everybody needs Renatus. We all know that the combo is the best value for dollar. In fact, if somebody wants to have success in real estate, it really is the only option, right? It is the only option, because Essentials is an amazing program on financial literacy and finding real estate deals. But as far as going into strategy of how to complete those real estate deals, that's all in the AIT. It's what it's designed for. Essentials is designed as a starting point, but having the entire combo is designed to give you all the aspects in order to create success. And so when you downsell them too early, you're actually robbing them of their potential success, right? You're actually prolonging their journey into where they want to be. So what I want you to do is I want you to think to yourself is how can you listen more? And I want to give you the opportunity to practice over this next week. I want to give you some ideas on how you can practice this. Now, it can start in general conversations. General conversations, what if instead of feeling like you need to have constant communication from your end, what if you asked more questions throughout your daily interactions? So when you feel like, unloading all of, the stories that you have of what you've gone through throughout the day, what if you just took the time to ask more questions? What if you took the time to listen in more, and instead of interrupting somebody's story because of how it relates to something that you were thinking about, what if you just this week, I'm not saying you have to do it forever, right? I'm not saying you have to change, the way that you communicate, but I'm just saying this week, what if you took the time to ask more questions and tell less stories? Ask more questions and say less things. Listen more and interrupt less. So that's one idea, okay? Just in your daily conversations over this next week. Here's the next idea. When you are on a prospecting call, when you are talking to guests, or I should say, people that are potential guests, people that you're talking to. This could be warm market. This could be, people that called off roadside signs, people that called off of a flyer or an ad, an internet ad of some sort, whatever it is. You're calling somebody to invite them. As you're asking questions, right? Because naturally you're going to be asking questions anyways. I'm going to invite you to, first of all, be quiet and listen. And do your best to hear what they mean, not just what they say. See, a good salesperson, right? A good communicator can listen and they can hear what somebody means, not what they say. This is actually going to help you in being less disappointed in the idea that somebody said they were going to come and they didn't show up, because in their tonality, in their conversation, they actually told you they're not coming, but many of you get so focused on needing to get that commitment that you're counting a commitment before it's ever a commitment. And you can feel it inside yourself. You guys all have the intuition where you can feel it, that they are not actually giving you a real commitment and they're actually not committed to showing up. And yet you accept it as such, because then you can make your little check mark in your own mind, or in your, accountability sheet, or whatever it is that you can say, I've got another person committed. So what I'd like you to do is, when you ask questions in your prospecting calls, I want you to start listening and seeing if you can hear what people mean versus what they say. And if you don't get it with the first question, I invite you to ask follow-up questions. If you don't get a strong feeling that that you know exactly what they mean based on what they say, I would invite you to ask follow-up questions. Now, follow-up questions are simple. They can be as simple as, tell me more about that, right? It's not necessarily a question, but it gives them the opportunity, right? Just tell me more about that. Or, what do you mean? Can you share more? Please explain. Just these little follow-up statements or questions that invite them to continue with their thoughts, to dive deeper into what they're actually meaning. Oh, tell me more about that. So that's the second opportunity, right? First opportunity is just in your daily actions. Second opportunity is when you're on your prospecting calls and when you're making invitations. I want you to do your best to listen to what people mean versus what they say. And if you can't get a strong understanding of what they mean, if you're not getting this gut feeling of what they truly mean, then ask follow-up questions. Dive deeper. Allow them to say more. Practice feeling and understanding versus just listening and accepting. Okay? All right, and then the last thing, and I gave you an example of this, is when you are sitting down with somebody and you're inviting them to take the next step in their business, when you're inviting them to move forward, when you are asking for the order, I invite you to pay very close attention to how natural it feels to interrupt that flow and that state of thought because you're uncomfortable with the silence. There was that one moment where when we were sitting down with this gentleman, with Caleb, with his guests, where we sat there in silence for probably 45 to 60 seconds. And saying it out loud, that doesn't seem like a lot. But when you're in that moment, I can tell you right now, it seems like eternity. And see, this gentleman that we were sitting down with, he's in sales. Like, that's what he does. He runs an entire sales team for a very large fitness company. So he understands sales. And I know that he paid attention. And he was hoping, you could see it, he was hoping that we were going to step in and relieve him of that pressure that he had placed on himself. Because I wasn't high pressure. I simply was asking a question, right? I wasn't challenging him in any way, except for the fact that I was giving him the opportunity and inviting him to move forward. He put all the pressure on himself. And so I know he paid attention to the fact that both me and Caleb stopped and listened. And we waited for him. We waited for him to make a decision, right? And it was interesting because as we were walking out, Caleb actually parked a different way than us. So me and Ryan were walking towards the parking lot, and he said, "Man, I've never had that hard of a time making a decision before, and feeling so pressured." And I said, "Why do you think that is? I didn't feel like I was pressuring you." He's like, "You weren't. I was putting all the pressure on myself." So think about that, folks. This is a decision where somebody is literally taking the opportunity to change the trajectory of their life. It's a big decision. Think back to when you made the decision, when you finally placed that $20,000. I know for me, that was a big, big deal. I remember when I brought that big check in, it was actually at a regional training in Salt Lake City. It was at a regional, and I brought that big check in. I was 22 years old. That was the most money I'd ever held in my hand at one time, even though it was just a check. It was the most money I've ever held in my hand at one time. And I'm coming in, and I've got it in my folder, and I can remember just the thought of it and the idea, and it was a big deal. And it still is a big deal. I'm grateful. It's the best decision I ever made, right? So when somebody is in that, it's okay for them to feel nervous. It's okay for them to put pressure on themselves because they are literally stepping into a new chapter of their life, right? They're stepping towards their greater good. So don't interrupt their thought process when they are thinking of solutions, when they are making a decision to move forward. Even if it feels uncomfortable, folks, when you ask if they're ready to get started, and when they, dodge the question, you say, well, how about we put in your order today, and then we can get you access to your classes, as soon as the 7 days once we fund your order. And then when they say, well, I don't know if I feel comfortable putting the money in, or putting your order in unless I have the money. How about we wait until we have the money? And we say, yeah, we can totally do that, but dude, there's a 7-day right of rescission anyways. So would you like to just put your 125 in today? We'll put the rest of the order in without the funding, and we can finish that up over the next 7 days. And in the meantime, you can start inviting people next Thursday, because you said you've already got a list of 30 people. Right? When you're asking those questions, and you ask the question and then stop, just shut up, just be quiet. That's my lesson for you guys today. Listen more. Say more with less. Learn to shut up. So I hope you'll take over this next week some of these practices that I gave to you in your daily interactions. Just practice listening more than you usually would. In your prospecting calls, hear what people mean versus what they say. And when you are sitting down with somebody one-on-one and asking for the order, don't interrupt their thought process. Ask for the order and shut up. That's the practice, folks. Get out there and make it happen. It's a beautiful day.
Thank you, Christian.